freaking first cut. Golly.
What's up, YouTube? Rick here, and we are about to deep dive this Valero Texas Open for all your DFS purposes, tier by tier. So make sure you're subscribed, hit the like button, sit back, and relax. The Valero Texas Open DFS, baby. Joining me to break it all down, Sia Nejad is here. Sia, what up?
What's up, fellas? We're just a few small steps away from the Masters, but why not just take down this this DraftKings Valero tournament while we're waiting?
Might as well just win this money, then win all the money next week, too. I mean, what seems so difficult about that? Greg DuCharme is here. What up, Greg?
What's going on? I feel the same way as you, Sia. Let's take this down. I need a stroke play event between match play and the Masters, because if this week goes anything like the match play went for me, it's not going to be good. But I know it won't, because we're back. I feel like we're back for some stroke play action.
Greg, do you watch Succession?
No. Should I?
Yeah, have you watched it?
No. I watched the first 2 episodes of the first season. This is like a few years ago, and I wasn't impressed. Apparently, I should have waited and watched a few more episodes.
Yeah, it's really good. But the point is, there's a character named Greg, and he interacts with this other character, but he always says it like Greg, and I always want to say it. Now it's like stuck in my brain every time I address our Greg.
Well, hey, look, I'm open to it. You want to reference it? I mean, it's a little bit over my head, but I'm all for it.
Well, we'll see how it goes, and I can tell you how our one and done is going, gentlemen. Not great for us, because the fans are smacking us around. And Sia, I was telling Kyle, the big win for the fans in the one and done, $2.1 million from Scotty Scheffler. That's good for you, because it's not like just you got passed; they passed half of us.
It's true. I still, at this point, it's really me trying to fend off Kyle, because, nobody wants to be at the bottom. But listen, when the fans pick Scotty Scheffler, and by the way, I'm not some like one and done like connoisseur. It's just not something I usually engage in. So not that I'm a rookie, but maybe my strategy is a loft. When they picked Scotty Scheffler, I was like, oh, good. The fans are wasting Scotty Scheffler. I want to take him down the stretch. But, here we are. He actually wins the tournament in match play. And so I'm looking up at almost everybody.
So that official fan vote to keep the momentum going, the link is in the description. Get your votes in. Elijah is the one who compiles all that. So big thanks to you, Elijah. And you guys are right in the mix of it now. We've got 8.6 in the purse this week. Obviously, something like $12 million for the Masters. So it's going to be big, and you have to have your selections in by Tuesday morning. That's when we're going to record the mega preview pod. But for now, Greg, I think we should get into a little DFS action. You excited for this? Back to regular stroke play.
I am fired up about it. Let's do it.
All right, TPC San Antonio, the Oaks course, and I'll share my screen. This is my website, RickRunGood.com. And Greg, on paper, this is a 7,400-yard par 4. You run some models, you realize it probably doesn't play that long. The greens are about medium-sized on tour. Like, what can we expect from this course, and then kind of the players that we would hope to have success this week?
Well, it seems like as far as the ratings are concerned, the models are concerned, it's right around average. You have to keep the ball in play. Doesn't necessarily have to be in the fairway. It can't be outside the tree line. That you can get into some real trouble if you're really offline. But fairways to rough, not a huge difference. And everything else seems to be right around average. What I noticed when I look at winners of this event, they're really solid ball strikers. Not necessarily the greatest, the longest drivers, but really solid ball strikers. You think of a guy like Adam Scott, who won the first rendition here, Jordan Spieth last year, Charlie Hoffman, who's had a lot of success here, Corey Connors, who won here. These are guys who hit the ball really well from tee to green. And it's not, it doesn't have to be a Bryson DeChambeau kind of driving distance. Not necessarily a huge advantage there, but guys who have real control of their ball. I mean, it's definitely, it's a challenging golf course, and you got to play well. And the guys that give themselves a lot of birdie opportunities, the guys that are able to hit a lot of greens, will have an advantage on this course.
Yeah, a couple things stand out to me. One, Greg already touched on. Not being in the fairway is not a problem as long as you're not super wayward. Rough is not penal at all. You hear some quotes from players, Sia, that's like, yeah, the rough is the same thing as the fairway, and the stats back it up. There's not a huge difference if you're playing out of the rough. The other thing is, these greens are about tour average, maybe a little bit bigger than tour average, but they're tiered. And when you get tiered greens, I start to lean more towards the approach players, because now it turns into not only hitting it the right distance, letting it bounce, seeing what the spin does to it, but also making sure you end up on that correct level so that you can give yourself a chance to make a lot of these birdies.
I totally agree. I mean, I'm definitely going to have more of an emphasis this week, I would say, compared to, let's say, the last few weeks during the Florida Swing, on approach for that. Well, partly for that reason. Definitely think it's a second shot golf course. And I'm definitely going to be leaning on approach really across all of the quote buckets. I mean, I don't think there's like a huge disparity one way or the other. So I think for this tournament, when you're looking at approach, I think you can look at it as just all of it, all of the tiers together.
All right. Well, I can't wait any longer. We've got to get into this player pool. We're going to jump directly into that $10,000 range. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners.
The Covenant will not stop.
There is something within us. Something sacred. Something worth protecting.
Silver Team, on me.
And we're back. Here's the cheat sheet. 5 golfers over $10,000. Rory McIlroy leads the way at 11,200. Hideki Matsuyama is 10,800. Our defending champion, Jordan Spieth, 10,600, with Abraham Answer at 10,300, and Bryson DeChambeau rounding out the tier at 10,200. Greg, we've got guys who've taken some time off. We've got guys with question marks, both with injuries up there as well. How are we starting to spend our hard-earned bucks at the top?
I think there are, I like to rule out the guys with the injury question. Now I know that you just saw Daniel Berger win after, or near win after an injury, and he looked great at the Honda Classic coming off an injury. So there is a chance that Hideki Matsuyama is feeling fine, feeling ready to go. Bryson looked too rusty to me last week to be an option. There was a lot for him to clean up, and I'm not sure going into a stroke play event that's a great thing for him. But Rory McIlroy on top seems to be a great option here. A couple reasons. One, he's been playing really good golf all around the world. I don't think he's going to run into those really difficult conditions like he did at the Arnold Palmer Invitational, and the players that kind of put him at a disadvantage, at least in my opinion. And Rory is really focused and ready. And from what I heard on his strategy for the Masters, playing this week is to take his mind off the Masters and give him something to focus on. And it leads me to believe his focus in this event is to win this tournament. And that strategy, while there's the secondary purpose of alleviating some pressure from completing the career Grand Slam, it puts his focus squarely on the Valero Texas Open. And I think that could go a long way for him.
Yeah, as if winning the Masters isn't pressure enough to have that event be the one to complete the career Grand Slam, and you've taken, 10 cracks at it. I don't know. How long has he been stuck on needing this one?
Well, let's see. He won the Open Championship in 2014. So I think that's when so since 2014, it's a long time. And we talked about it a little bit with Scotty Scheffler reaching world number 1. When these milestones are at your fingertips, and the longer it goes by without you taking it, the more difficult it gets. I mean, you've seen some of the legends of the game. I mean, guys that you'd put on the Mount Rushmore of the game of golf, like Arnold Palmer, like Sam Snead, unable to complete a career Grand Slam. And it becomes a thing. And I like the change in strategy for Rory this week. And I think it really benefits him this week. I think from a DFS perspective, he gives you great value, and he is the best player in this field, very, very clearly. but he's not priced the way a John Rahm might be if he were here. Maybe John Rahm would be at what, 11-3, 11-4. And this just seems much more manageable. So I really like Rory. We've
historically seen him take play the match play and then take this week off leading into the Masters. So that's what you
right
when you're talking about the change in strategy.
Right. And he switched that. And I think it's a really good idea for guys to play the week before a major. It allows you to shake off a little bit of the rust. It allows you to stay focused on the shot at hand. And you think about like a Brooks Koepka. I mean, they come in with real focus because there's a real meaning to it beyond, well, there's FedEx Cup points. And in the fall, for some of these guys, when Rory plays in the fall, the FedEx Cup isn't on his mind. I mean, maybe it is when he's building his schedule, but there's something to prepare for. There's something to be ready for. And that means, to me, he's coming into this event prepared. He's coming into this event ready to go with a real purpose. And that could go a long way. And then he's played here once before in 2013. He came in second. That doesn't hurt either.
No, it doesn't. Rory McIlroy in the advanced metrics certainly looking good. Multiple strokes off the tee. Basically every event dating back to last summer. The approach play went through a little bit of a downtime, but he seemed to clean that up a little bit. So Rory McIlroy certainly trending in the right direction at the right time. See ya. Greg quickly dismissed the guys dealing with injuries. Hideki Matsuyama, Bryson DeChambeau. I don't necessarily think he's wrong, but those two are going to offer kind of leverage opportunities in the $10,000 range. Are they good enough plays to accept the leverage, or are you going to avoid them and go somewhere else?
I think they're good enough plays to accept the leverage if the leverage actually is there. It wouldn't shock me if guys like Decky and Bryson end up picking up enough ownership that they're not going to eclipse Rory by any means, but they're going to be somewhere near some of those other 10K guys, including Rory McIlroy. So I agree with Greg. I'm not super interested in either of those guys. I think if I was going to play one, I'd probably bank on Bryson. I agree that he was rusty, but I mean, I just like the fact that he played a lot of golf last week, and considering this field, I think it could be a breakout opportunity for him. With all of that said, Rory's my guy in this range, and he's probably going to be the only guy I'm going to play in a lot of my lineups. I do think there is cause to maybe lean on Jordan Spieth, knowing that he won here last year, that he was 30th in 2019, and that really what's been failing him as of late has been the putter. I mean, if you just look at the match play last week, but even before that, the three tournaments before that, the putting's been really bad. The approach play's been okay. As far as a get right spot, and a spot where you are not only getting right because it's a course you like and you've been good at, but also you're getting right for the Masters, I think this could be a sneaky spot for Jordan Spieth.
Yeah, I find the $10,000 range to be quite fascinating. So Jordan Spieth, lost 5.5 strokes putting last week at the match play. Those are the official PGA Tour numbers, though they can be a bit wonky for match play because guys play different number of holes. Shots and holes themselves are conceded. So take it for what it's worth. But Jordan Spieth did not putt well last week, and he hasn't been putting well. When I look at this, Greg, I'm much more bullish on Hideki Matsuyama. Maybe I'm more willing to kind of stomach a WD on Thursday morning, or maybe 9 holes into this event if that's what's going to happen. And there's no real evidence that that's going to happen, but there's question marks around Jordan Spieth. There's question marks around Bryson DeChambeau. At least I know that Hideki's been awesome this year. He's been awesome in 2022. He's gaining across the board. He's putting well. I mean, I'm much more bullish on Decky than I think you two are.
Yeah, and again, it has nothing to do with his play.
Yeah.
Maybe this is a Daniel Berger situation all over again at the Honda. I mean, his play was great. He gets hurt, and then he comes back, and he's fine. And that there's a real possibility of that. I just wonder if that price is a little high considering the question mark. And that's really where he pushes me away. But you're right, Rick. If there was no injury reporting on the PGA Tour, and he just said, I don't want to play in the players this year, I'm okay. I'll sit out the WGC Dell Technologies match play. You'd say, well, okay, well, this guy's looking really good. He's going to look good in any start from a metrics perspective. But we do know about a back injury. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's a reset where he is with his game. Has he not been able to practice as much? I'm sure he hasn't been. And so when you get back to practicing, how has it gone? and we don't know. So the reset gives me a little bit of pause when there's a Rory McIlroy there. I'm with Sia. I think Jordan Spieth is interesting. I have my questions, but I'm much more willing to stomach the Jordan Spieth questions than I am Hideki Matsuyama or Bryson questions.
All right, well, that just leaves us with one guy in the 10,000 range that we didn't talk about. It's Abraham Answer. He's 10,300. See, I liked what I saw at the match play. I think that he was a hair reliant on the putter, but for his first, I don't know, 3 or 4 matches, he never trailed. I mean, he was in control, and he played enough golf, but not too much for me to be all that concerned about teeing it up the following week. We talked about TPC San Antonio, which I think on paper, it looks longer than it is. You usually get a lot of run out in these fairways. They're usually more dry than the greens themselves are. I think this is kind of a sneaky spot on Abe Answer. How do you think his ownership sizes up compared to the rest of these guys?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think he's going to be super popular because he's 10,300, but I could see him. I mean, I think it's going to be Rory in this range more than anybody, and I think everybody else is going to be kind of in a similar circumstance. And I'm just throwing out numbers, but I think they're all going to be somewhere between like 12 and 14%, for example. As far as Abraham Answer, honestly, I mean, you kind of understated it as far as relying on the putter. I mean, gaining 7.21 strokes with the putter, and then it's like, okay, well, that's fine. He had a hot putter. Like, don't hold that against him because he was good with the ball striking. Well, yeah, but the problem is, if you just look at the last like 6 or 8 tournaments, the ball striking hasn't been great. It's not the Abraham Answer we think of, like he's just going to keep it in the fairway and he's going to keep it, 8 to 15 feet from the pin on approach. Like the approach play's been a little spotty. And then you go back and look at his history here, and there's nothing that's like really standing out. I mean, you got a 23rd, a 40th, or and just some middling results. So it'd be one thing if Answer was like 9,100. But I'm just going to go ahead and pay up for Rory McIlroy and just skip the rest of the 10K guys altogether, or take a guy who I think has more upside in a Jordan Spieth or Bryson or even a Hideki Matsuyama.
And see, I think that's the key word with Abraham Answer is that upside word, and it seems like his upside doesn't match the price. Now,
right?
I mean, would you be shocked if he won the tournament? I would be surprised. I would be surprised, maybe not shocked, but I'd be surprised. And if you look at what he's done here in the past, aside from just the finishing positions, he's gained strokes putting every year. And yet his best finish is at T23 last year, which was the only time he gained strokes approaching the green in his career here. And so I wonder, looking at an Abraham Answer, is there enough? What can he do differently here that's going to make him pop and really finish near the top of the lead? And I'm not sure that I see the path as clear as I do for a Spieth or a McIlroy.
I will note this is the 3rd most expensive that Abraham Answer has ever been at 10,300, which is
it just doesn't seem warranted.
Tough pill to swallow when you're paying basically an all-time high for any golfer. That's not Abraham Answer.
I mean, Rick, why is he more than Corey Connors? I mean,
yeah, I'm not super bullish on Corey Connors this week, but that it is strange that Answer is $500 more than Connors, who went deeper in the match play, has better history around here. Honestly, he's probably been playing better than him the last 4 or 5 months. It is a curious pricing situation.
It's bizarre. It's completely bizarre. I don't get that at all. They should be flipped.
I can't imagine DraftKings is actually factoring in the number of holes Corey Connors played last week. If that's the case, then clever on DraftKings part. Like, I get it, but there's no way that's being factored in, right, Rick?
No, I think it is more reflective of what the betting odds are, and I think that the betting markets respect Abraham Answer's winning upside sometimes more often than they respect Corey Connors. Although I think both of them only have one win, right? Connors has the one here a couple years ago, and Answer just had one at the end of last year. That's both one for each, isn't it?
Yeah. And but I mean, Connors looks, if you take the holes he played out last year, he looks so good in every other area. And you think about all the things we mentioned at the top of the show that are important. It's hard to hit greens here, but you can. You got to get it on the right level. I mean, these are things Corey Connors did all week last week. He didn't play the number of competitive holes of most guys who get to the semifinals. I mean, his first match was conceded after the second hole. I mean, that just relieves a lot of stress. So yeah. I think that's a a miss, but maybe it gives you some value to Corey Connors.
Well, let's talk about it because he leads off the $9,000 range. Connors is at the top $9,800. Siwoo Kim at 96. Maverick McNeely is 95. The bottom half starts with Chris Kirk at 9,400. Gary Woodland at 9,300 with Keegan Bradley, Tony Finau, and Jason Day at 92, 91, and $9,000 respectively. Sia, back to you here. Okay, is this a value spot on Connors? Would you prefer someone else out of this $9,000 range?
I don't know what to do with Connors. I'm going to be honest with you. I love his history, obviously. I love his game for this course. And by the way, I like that Greg brought up he didn't really have to play one of the rounds, because I am factoring in the number of holes he had to play, the number of days and rounds he had to play. I don't really know what to do with that. I mean, he hasn't withdrawn. He's here for a reason. He only has to play 4 rounds, which is, or maybe 2, but probably 4, which is going to be quite a relief from what he did last week. The ball striking is there. I don't mind Corey Connors. I'm just not super excited to play him. And because I'm probably going some form with my lineups, I'm going some formulation of like Rory McIlroy and then balance. I don't really know that I'm going to get to Corey Connors.
There is not a lot of great history. It doesn't happen often that guys who make deep runs in the match play tee it up the following week. For example, as soon as Scottie Scheffler won his group, he withdrew from this event, right? Because he knew, okay, well, now I've got at least 2 more matches, or I could have 2 more matches the next day, and I could have 4 more matches over the next 2 days. I know this is going to be a lot of golf. Now, Corey Connors, Greg, is going back to probably the best spot on the PGA Tour for him. So he wasn't going to pass up this opportunity. And now we're reconciling what does 6 matches over 5 days mean compared to what should have been 7 matches over 5 days, going back to your favorite spot on the schedule.
Right. And realistically, I mean, this is something I think the golf world misinterprets about the PGA Tour, that guys try to peak for the majors. And there's a handful of guys that do, but the handful is small. And I don't think Corey Connors is in that class. He would like to. I think we all know he has the game to win a major championship, contend in a major, but he's trying to win events on the PGA Tour. And when you have a spot like this is a better chance for him than the Masters. So, I mean, he's got to take this event very seriously. And it's not a prep round. It's not a shake the rust off round. This is a tournament he's trying to win, and it's an important tournament for him. So I think that is a real factor here. But Rick, other than Corey Connors, who I like this week, I think he's a valuable play. I think you could start your lineup with him if you don't want to play Rory. But I think Chris Kirk and Gary Woodland are also interesting in this range, and I wouldn't be against playing them either.
Yeah, so Chris Kirk coming off of, 2 top 10 finishes in his last 3 starts. Gary Woodland has been popping up as well. Let me put just a little bow on Corey Connors here, because if you look at everybody in this field dating back to 2010 at TPC San Antonio, Charlie Hoffman, by far the best player with the most rounds, gaining 2.4 strokes per round. Corey Connors is right behind, 2.3. It's only 3 starts, but he has been phenomenal here. So he is certainly someone to keep an eye on. Sia, we've got Connors in the mix. We've got Chris Kirk in the mix. We've got Gary Woodland in the mix. Would you like to submit another name or voice some concerns about one of those guys?
I should have kept going because those are my other 2 guys. It really was Chris Kirk and Gary Woodland. The one watch out with Chris Kirk, of course, is he's likely to be very popular. You look at his history and you look at his recent metrics, and it's hard to find a reason not to take Chris Kirk. I mean, he is a little expensive, of course, but I think people will be willing to pay the price for Kirk. So I suppose if he's really, really popular, like approaching 20%, which I kind of don't think is going to happen, I'll be off of him in that case. But I do get the argument for Chris Kirk, and I get the argument for Gary Woodland too. He's striking it so much better. And the cool thing about Woodland, he has the all-around game. You know, the off the tee, especially here, you know, if he actually pulls out driver and sprays it just a little bit, it's probably not going to hurt him too bad here. The approach play has been really good. The short game has been really good. So he doesn't do he hasn't been really excelling at a lot of things, but he's been really good in all departments. I'll tell you one guy that I had on my list that I took off.
Real quick, before you do that, I will just mention this is the best course on tour in terms of strokes gain metrics for Chris Kirk, in which he's played at least 9 rounds. So he's gaining a stroke and a half per round. That's the history that Sia is referring to. Go ahead, Sia. Who was it?
Yeah, and Chris Kirk's history here kind of reflects that. I mean, he has peppered in some missed cuts recently, but other than that, over the last 5 years, a 6th, an 8th, and a 13th. I mean, that for Chris Kirk of all people, I mean, you would almost think that would be the history of somebody with the pedigree of a Hideki Matsuyama or even a Rory McIlroy, but no, that's Chris Kirk. The guy I had on my list that I think is relying a little bit too much on the putter as of late, and the ball striking hasn't really been as good as I want it to be, and he's really expensive. It's Maverick McNeely. I love the guy. I try to take him in every tournament if I can justify it. I don't feel really good about it at this price here.
I'm man, we're not on the same page today. I'm a bit more bullish on Maverick McNeely. He was probably the most unlucky guy last week. You know,
I agree.
He was
Rick, let me
0-1. Yeah.
I'm just going to interrupt you. I had him in every single one of my match play lineups, and it literally was like a slap to the face, if you will, which of course is an apropos metaphor. When he didn't make the cut, and it wasn't because Kevin Na took him out in overtime, if you will. It was because Neiman, when he was playing Na, I think missed like a 3.5 or 4 footer, which I think gave Na the split to get him into the extra holes. I think that's how it went down, but Mav McNeely was the pick last week. I can't believe he didn't advance.
Yeah, 2.5 points and doesn't advance out of his group is a tough scene, but I'm very much liking what I see from Maverick McNeely. The guy is basically in the last year, he is up and to the right. He went from being a slightly above average tour player and living there to improving seemingly every single week. So I'm excited about Mav McNeely. Greg, this $9,000 range, you kind of mentioned it. Maybe you start with Corey Connors. It is quite rich with selections.
Yeah. And again, I mean, if you like a McNeely, which I think is a fine play, I think it's justifiable. And I think the price is maybe a little high. The perception might be a little high, but he deserves to be priced ahead of a Gary Woodland and a Keegan Bradley and a Tony Finau. He's earned that. So I like what I've seen out of McNeely. And then from there, so when you have those 3 guys really right in a row, if you start with the Corey Connors, you can get a McNeely, Kirk, or Woodland. I think you're setting yourself up for a great lineup. Jason Day hasn't been great here. Tony Finau,
yeah. Let's talk about it.
He's worth talking about. As you say, Rick, we have to have the Tony Finau conversation.
Gotta have it.
Because he made on my count 9 birdies against Xander Schauffele.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just
is that enough? Is that enough?
A Xander thing?
You?
He's got a T3 here. The play has just been so bad, but you know that the upside is there. There aren't a lot of guys in this field who can go out there and make 9 birdies in a round against Xander Schauffele. I mean, that's a elite upside, but it hasn't been great. It hasn't been great of last, and it still worries me. And I know there was no pressure in that round. He was playing to spoil the party for me, and not for Xander, for me.
And he did.
And he did.
Yeah, I like that, Sia. I obviously like the upside when you birdie half of your holes. I like the flash, but if Finau wins this and wipes me this week, I'll survive. I'll move on. I don't think I can be a part of it.
I am not going to be a part of it. Here's the thing, and by the way, Xander crushed me too. So I had him, and just like I had Mav McNeely in a lot of lineups. Yeah, Xander not getting out of that group was really a shock to me. So with that said, listen, here's the thing. I think there is a mischaracterization of Finau's sort of elite upside at this point, because when you look at any tournament he's in, including this one, when you look at the guys around him, whether it's 3 up or 3 down from his price range, I feel like most of the time there's 2 or 3 guys that have the upside that we think Tony Finau does. The thing is their floor is way higher than Tony Finau. I feel like Tony Finau has sort of been stuck in this narrative that just isn't true anymore, and we have a large enough sample size to kind of prove that it's not true. Can he win? Yeah, but I think the guys around him have either equal or better upside with higher floors. I'm just not interested.
Yeah, it's kind of stuck in neutral a little bit here for the last since the win. Since he won, he's kind of been stuck in neutral. Okay, gentlemen, let's continue down the board here. We've got to get to the 8s, the 7s, of course, the 6s. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners. And we're back. That $8,000 range on DraftKings, quite small. Adam Hadwin, Kevin Streelman, Johnny Vegas, Luke List. Then we round it out with Davis Riley, Russell Knox, Charlie Hoffman. I've heard of him. Mito Pereira, Patton Kazire, and Ryan Palmer. Greg, you're first up. 8K. How do you want to spend it?
All right, I'm going to go the top and the bottom. Okay. Now there's a couple other guys I like in the middle, but I think Adam Hadwin is worth riding. It's worth riding the horse here. He has his last 2 starts are top 10s, the Players and the Valero. I've been thrilled with it. The ball striking in every event except the Genesis Invitational this year has been positive. He's gained in every single one of those. That's a real good sign. He's gained on the greens in his last 2. And his record here is improving. He missed the cut, tied 72nd, tied 23rd. I think it's a good course fit for him, and he's starting to fit that mold of he's not at this level, but the great ball striker, not necessarily long, but really just a high quality ball striker, a Charlie Hoffman type. Adam Scott keeps coming into my mind. It's unfair to say because of Adam Scott's golf swing. But it's the quality of the ball striking. I see that with Hadwin. And then my second favorite in this group is down in the 8Ks, and it's Patton Kizzire.
Mm-hmm.
Patton Kizzire, since the start of this year as well, he too has gained strokes approaching the green in every event except one. And the only one he didn't was the Farmers Insurance Open, a really tough venue. I think plays quite a bit different than this. He's gained strokes putting in 2 of the last 3, which I really like. And he's played only 1 time here at the Valero Texas Open, and it was a tied 9th last year. So I love Hadwin, and I love Kizzire in the 8Ks.
Kizzire is generally a guy who outperforms his finishing position in the tournament with DraftKings points. He makes a lot of birdies. He's going to get him back with bogeys, but this is a fantasy point game, and those are certainly valuable. Adam Hadwin, we've been tracking his 2022 approach gains for weeks, and he's still hitting it well. Always good to see. Okay, Sia, we've got Hadwin accounted for. We've got Patton Kizzire accounted for. Where would you want to go next?
I love both of those guys. That they were on my list. I'll give you 2 other guys though that I like. Luke List is one of them. I'll admit, this is obviously going to be part of Team No Putt here, but and his results here aren't super great. He's kind of like a model winner more than anything else. But I do see the upside. I mean, we saw the upside recently with Luke List. I like him as we look at him on the screen. Yeah, the approach play has been spotty. The putter is the putter. That's Luke List's putter. So you're just going to have to accept that, Kyle Stanley-esque. But if the ball striking is there, again, I'm, when I look at this on YouTube, for those of you listening, now if you can see my face, now I've gotten to the point where I'm like kind of trying to justify a pick that I'm not super in love with. But I do think that Team No Putt can be okay here. And so I don't mind with the ball striking. I don't mind taking a shot at Luke List unless he's even close to remotely popular, in which case I really have no reason to. I'll pivot off of him. Another guy that might be popular is Mito Pereira. I mean, if you want to look at the ball striking and just the overall metrics with him, it's really popping. I think when you're talking about some guys who have a price like Matt McNeely of 9,500 and some of these guys like Answer, who's 10,300, I think you want to look for some really good value plays. And I think you have it here in Mito Pereira.
Mito Pereira has gained on approach in 5 straight, off the tee in 3 straight. We've kind of got that ball striking version of Mito back that we lost for a couple of weeks. One other guy, actually, I guess 2 other guys, and these fall under kind of the elite course history guys. Kevin Streelman's 8,700, back-to-back top 10s in 19 and 18, and he's playing well as of late. And then, Greg, we've talked about this before, and I just want to reiterate this. The Charlie Hoffman 2.4 strokes gained per round at this event, that's not just good for this event. We went through a list a couple of weeks ago where it was like Rory at Bay Hill, Spieth at Pebble Beach and Augusta National, DJ at Pebble Beach. That is an amount of strokes gained in an amount of rounds that is probably top 8 in course history of all players at all courses.
Yes. And I mean, if you look at what he's done here in the past,
it's stupid.
It is unbelievable. I mean, it's dark green. It's the color of money. But if you go to his recent form, it's the color of something else that's a lot less friendly to look at. It's deep red.
How do you reconcile that, Greg? How do you reconcile the elite of elite course history with a guy who has 2 consecutive missed cuts, then a 71st and a 67th. He had a WD and a miscut. He's got no finish better than 67th in his last 6, and he's doing it in a way that is very anti-Charlie Hoffman, losing in the ball striking categories.
Yeah, and that worries me. It's a sign he's not swinging well. He's not hitting the ball well. And every year when he comes here, he hits the ball well. But there are 2 starts here. And again, it's only, I guess they came here in 2010. So at this golf course, there have been 2 finishes outside the top 13, which is hard to imagine. Yeah. But it was in 17 and 18, it tied 40th and it tied 64th where he struggled. And I have a feeling this is going to be a letdown week. And so I want to let all the ownership pile up on Hoffman, and I want to go down to Kazire, or go up to a Hadwin and win all the money. I think you're going to get a letdown from Hoffman.
Charlie Hoffman, a win, 3 runners up, a 3rd place finish, and then 4 more top 15s to go along with those results, but not playing well coming in. Let's pop on down to the $7,000 range. But before I do, Sia, as the president of the Ryan Palmer fan club, he is a flat $8,000. This is not a spot, right?
Probably not. I'm vice president now, by the way. I'm president for someone. I demoted myself because I wasn't a super big fan of how Ryan Palmer was playing. I looked at his metrics before the show. I was trying to find a way to justify it. Listen, the history here isn't bad, and we know Ryan Palmer has game. We know it's a weak field. I don't hate the play, but if you're just talking about the metrics, there's nothing really I can see to justify the play. If I'm making 10 lineups, do I have him in one? Yes. If I'm making 5 lineups, do I have him in one? Probably not.
$7,000 range, Rasmus Højgaard, Robert McIntyre at the top. And this is where you start to get that big old range on DraftKings. The notables at the bottom include Lee Westwood, Bo Hostler, and Matthew Neesmith, $7,100 for that Matthew Neesmith. Okay, Greg, how are we going about sorting through this very large $7,000 range?
I think there's a guy near the top in Sahith Theegala who is very interesting. And again, the form hasn't been rock solid, consistent, but this is the price range where I'm okay with paying for that. And I think he has a lot of upside. I think this is a guy trending toward his first victory on the PGA Tour. And so when you can play him at this price, now is a good time for it. The one concern is he can spray it off the tee a little bit. My hope is, I mean, that punishes you at Valspar too.
Yeah. Let me ask you about this because, and I think you've talked about this before about his swing and how it's kind of very feel and handsy and he's got to get in the right spots. And I think that produces a lot of volatility. I mean, you can look through this. He's got some great results, but it's, T25 at Farmers, MDF, T3rd, 48, cut, T7. Like, I don't think the current version of Sahith is like a super consistent guy. It's like high upside popping here and there.
Right. That's exactly right. But I think that upside is winning. I think there's a real chance that he could win. And I think he could win here. I'm a little worried about the off the tee game. I mean, he's going to have to drive it well. He can't spray it here the way you could in Phoenix. I mean, I saw on your site, Rick, Andy Lack talked about the comparison between this course and TPC.
Was it Summerlin?
Summerlin was one, but Scottsdale is the one I'm thinking of where he finished tied 3rd. So I think there's a chance. Now, this is a high risk play. So I think it's worth taking the chance because of the upside, but it is high risk. Yeah, and I wanted to ask Sia about this, unless you have any other thoughts on Theegala.
No, I was just going to say there are the comp that I like about Summerlin is you can be a little bit off. You can't be way off. If you're a little bit off, you're in rough that is not penal at all. If you're very far off, you're in the desert and you're dead, which is kind of like the way that I attribute how you have to drive the ball around here. Fun fact, one of the guys who's won at both of those places, Summerlin and here at TPC San Antonio, Martin Laird. He's in this range. He's $7,500. Sorry, who was that other guy?
Yeah, Martin Laird's one. But I wanted to ask Sia about TPC Lee. Is he in play here this week?
So I want to be super careful here because I don't want the narrative to take over. He's
Oh,
been
really?
pretty-
You don't? You don't? You don't?
well, not.
Are you,
not
are you
yet.
sure?
At the end of the show, maybe, but not yet. The thing is on approach, he's been really bad. The last 5 tournaments he's lost on approach. And given that this is a second shot golf course and really his approach is, I understand it's a TPC course, but the current form, it just doesn't seem justifiable to me. There's too many other guys I like in this range. So unfortunately, I think I might be off TPC lead this week.
Well, he gained 5 strokes here last year. He lost the week before. He was a little spotty coming in last time.
And his history here is good. To your point, his history here is good. I don't think it's a bad play. I just think I'm probably going to be on other guys in this 7K range.
Okay. Well, if you're on other guys, then I think I might be too. That might be a little scary.
That Sia endorsement, it's kind of hard to really follow through with. Okay, gentlemen, there's a lot of names here. Sia, who else in this 7K range are we comfortable with?
So it's not a comfort level thing because I'm not really super comfortable with any of the guys I'm about to say, but Matt Kuchar is one of them who, again, I keep referencing course history, which isn't a huge factor here. It's a pretty straightforward golf course, but his history here is pretty compelling. And his recent history, 16th at the Valspar. I mean, I do see some signs that the game is coming together. I don't mind him. And again, he's a shorter hitter, but don't worry about that. It seems like a long golf course, but it plays a lot shorter than it is. I like Kuchar. I like Martin Laird. So Martin Laird has burned me the last 2 times I've played him. And he's really burned me because I had one lineup that like might have had an outright potential. And I had Martin Laird as my 6th guy.
Laird and Luke Lissia are like absolute, and I'm with you, but like absolute team no putt all-stars.
Laird's lost almost 10 strokes putting just in the last 2 tournaments. Kyle Stanley thinks that's bad. This is
wow. Yeah, I mean, he is just your punching bag tonight.
I like that. That was a drive-by on Kyle Stanley.
Another one.
Hey, listen, I am secretary of the Kyle Stanley fan club, and I love the guy, but he can't putt. And so, yeah, I'm going a little too deep on team no putt with like suggesting Luke List and Martin Laird. I will say this, though. I'm going to take another shot at Martin Laird because in spite of the putting troubles, he has been really good here. Not just the win, but he's actually, the finishing positions overall have been really good. It gives me the sense that he's more comfortable putting here. And we see that now if you're watching on YouTube. He's actually gaining more often than you might think, at least at this course. And the ball striking has been great. So I do like Martin Laird.
It's 9 starts at the Valero Texas Open. He's gained with the putter 4 times, lost 4 times, and was basically dead even in one of them. This is the perfect no putt guy when you finish T9 at exactly tour average with the putter. Like that's what you're hoping for from the Luke Lists and the Martin Lairds of the world.
Pretty much. And there's one other guy in the 7K range that also is pretty much firmly entrenched in team no putt, but not nearly as bad as Martin Laird and Luke List and some of those guys like Kyle Stanley. It's Matthew Naismith.
Yes, I knew it. Yeah, I knew it.
This is kind of my sneaky proposition here. At least I hope he ends up being sneaky. The fact that Greg was thinking along the same lines scares me a little bit, but he's really he's already popped a little bit. It's just kind of a small sample size. But remember that the classic Matthew Naismith, vintage Matthew Naismith, was the guy we're seeing right now who really gains on approach. For whatever reason, he lost it for a little while, but he's really popping on approach. The putter is bad, although he has shown the ability to pop with the putter. The ball striking overall has been really good. I think it's 7,100. You're getting a bargain here. And I think this guy could top 10 this tournament if the game is right.
It's a misprice, in my opinion. This is a misprice. He's coming off a tied 3rd. I know he's been inconsistent and he's been a popper, but I liken this guy to Tom Hoagie. And you're going to a place where his game gives him a real advantage. And you look at what he did last year, his only start here at this tournament. He came in tied 34th. He lost 1.57 strokes putting. And so he can get around here without having a pot putting week. And at 7,100, tied 34th can go a long way. That can be a really solid part of a lineup. So I look at him as kind of for a popper, a high floor guy. I think his floor is higher than Thigala's, who's up at the top of this range. I think he's a must. I think he's a must.
Side note on Matthew Naismith, because we know that par 5 scoring is pretty important here. And I'm pulling up last 24 rounds right now, but last 12 rounds, I think he's 3rd in this field, strokes gained par 5. So for a guy who we conventionally think of as a shorter hitter, a second shot guy, he's actually winning on the par 5. So keep that in mind as well. If you look at that strokes gained par 5 the last 24 rounds, it's a slightly different story. He's actually around 50th. But again, he's coming in hot, and that's what we're trying to take a hold of, is the ascent that he is on.
I would be remiss if we did not talk about Brendan Steele, who was in the midst of a very difficult stretch of golf recently. He missed, I believe, 5 straight cuts, has gotten it figured out. T26 at the API, T13 at the Players, firmly in the team no putt category. But similar to Martin Laird here, Greg, you get a golfer who has a lot of good history at the Valero, including a victory in 2011 and a guy that has gained strokes putting in half of those starts. I think if we marry the recent ball striking with the maybe historical course putting, I think we've got ourselves a guy who can make a move.
I like it. He was definitely somebody that I had on my list when I first looked at this. I think he's a factor. I don't have a very high confidence in the, I don't feel like there's a ton of upside with the Brendan Steele, but I think there's definitely an avenue to play him for sure.
Let's continue to the depths of the $6,000 range. This is going to be actually quite interesting because we usually go down to the min price and we say, oh, who's the min? Who's the min? There's actually kind of an interesting situation down there. Before I get down there, $6,900, Brandon Grace, Brendan Todd, Cam Champ, David Lipsky, Minwoo Lee, Nate Lashley. The min priced options, that is $6,000 on DraftKings. Martin Trainer, David Skins, Peter Uihlein. That's the guy I want to talk about. So Peter Uihlein, last time we saw him was 2 weeks ago. I finished runner-up at the Korn Ferry Tour event. Say what you will about Peter Uihlein. I will say, so he is $6,000 on DraftKings, Sia. He's 9,900 on FanDuel. So to put that into perspective, Luke List is also $9,900 on FanDuel, but he's $8,500 on DraftKings. So that is a $2,500 difference between sites, something you don't usually see, which means that might be, I don't know if it's an error, but it might be an error.
It's an error. Peter Uihlein, just when you went down to the bottom there, I got to be honest, I didn't know he was in this tournament. And before you even said his name, I was like, what is that guy doing down here? He should be like in the 6,600 range, 6,700. He definitely should not be where he is. So yeah, that's an error that, listen, that's one of those things where you're like, oh, definitely take advantage of that. Well, just keep in mind that the error, it's not like he should have been like a 9,000 golfer that's going to make the cut. So you're still taking, right. You're still taking a bit of a risk here, but yeah, no, that's definitely a misprice. I like how his game has been trending as of late. He shouldn't be 6,000. Yeah,
last 4 starts, a runner-up and a 17th place finish on the Korn Ferry Tour, and then he made the cut at both the Honda Classic and the Puerto Rico Open. So 4 starts in a row that you would probably take for the dead min. But let me bop this back over to you here, Greg, because the $6,000 range, if you are going up and you're getting somebody in that $10,000 range, you might have to brush your feet and get down get them dirty here. What do you like in the $6,000 range?
Yeah, I don't mind the $6,000 range at the high end. I don't think I'm going down to a Peter Uihlein, even mispriced or not. I don't look at that as a really high chance of, shocking the world, if you will. But when you're in the upper area of the range, the 69, 68, and even 6,700 range, I think there's some really interesting plays. I think Nate Lashley is a solid play. He finished tied 27th at the Valspar, tied 7th at the Puerto Rico Open. He's missed the cut in both starts here, but he seems to be hitting the ball a little bit better. And I think he's a worthy play. And then I go down to Adam Svensson, who's kind of been a fan favorite of ours, a very popular player because of the approach play. Tied 39th at the Valspar. He missed the cut at the API, tied 9th at the Players. I mean, these are pretty good results. And I can look past a missed cut at the API when it's surrounded by some really good form and when the ball striking has been as good as it's been for him.
Yeah, those are kind of the staples. That whole Rye, Svensson, Smotherman range, they're all 6,800. That I'd be fine with any of them. I think Doc I think Doc is kind of getting right at 6,700. Sia, what else in this range is worth exploring?
You know, I'm marveling at the fact that Henrik Stenson is 6,300 in this field. It's just weird to see. I'm not saying it's necessarily unjustified. You know, I'm going to mention a couple names, but a couple other names I do want to point out. Ben Martin has had success here in terms of making the cut and finishing with, you know, middling results, 30s, 40s, finishing positions. He was second last week in Punta Cana. So somebody to keep in mind at 6,400. My guy, Jim Herman at 6,100. He has won here before, right? Not only that, but he, you know, the ball striking isn't as bad as some of those other guys in the 6,100 range. So again, if you're trying to just, you know, go for Hail Marys, I think Jim Herman is viable. But let's go to the four guys I like. Nate Lashley was one of them. Danny Lee is another one of them. Doc Redman, who we've talked about a lot over the last few weeks. I don't want to say it's a misprice, but it very well could be. And JJ Spawn, if you guys recall, a couple of weeks ago, we brought him up and we were talking about the injury and the sort of the misdiagnosis he received. That tournament that we talked about, he played really well. And I expect him to play well in this tournament too. The metrics are really, really strong, especially recently for JJ Spawn. So I think that's a really good price on him.
Yeah, Spawn's been pretty darn good. I wanted to see what Kevin Chappell's been up to, Greg, because it was just a couple of years ago when he won this thing. But
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm seeing a lot of red here.
Yeah.
On the site.
I looked at him too. He had my interest because I think he played pretty well early in a recent event, but it just hasn't panned out. And that can happen. You watch some of these guys on Thursday and you're saying, oh, maybe he's coming back. He's been playing well. And you see the rest of the week and, you know, they come back to earth. So not overly high on him. I'm not crazy about much else in this range going down the list. I mean, a name like JT Poston has popped up here and there. I'm not very high on him. He's been struggling approaching the green. Graham McDowell, you saw him play pretty well last week. But again, I'm just there's not much there. So maybe you know who else could be an interesting guy?
Hank Lebioda.
I was going to ask you if there was a 6,600 guy here that you liked. No, but like a Lee Hodges seems like a young guy that's figuring it out. Had a good week a couple weeks ago at the Honda. Hasn't been great since, but maybe he resurfaces. Again, that's a guess.
If I may, he makes the all-Lee team this week. So we have 5 golfers that have Lee in their name: Lee Hodges, KH Lee, Danny Lee, Lee Westwood, and Min Woo Lee. So you got to, with the 6th golfer, throw in Rory or somebody with a Lee sort of last name, like McNeil Lee, Kyle Stanley, Mav McNeil Lee, however you want to justify that 6th.
Stanley played well here last year.
Is that our all narrative team? Was that a spoiler alert?
Not really. That was the sort of the secondary narrative team. The narrative team, if I may,
Please.
is
yes.
So we're in Texas, and what do we know about Texas? We know that
everything's bigger in Texas,
including America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. So there are at least 6 players, but these are the 6 prominent ones I found who have last names that share last names of mostly Hall of Fame Dallas Cowboys, or not necessarily Hall of Famers, but prominent Dallas Cowboys.
6 of those exist.
Really?
6 of those exist.
Yeah, I thought
last names.
Last names, correct.
Oh my God, I don't even know if hold on. Don't spoil this yet. I'm not good at Dallas Cowboys players, but I'm scrolling through. I mean, there's not a Vegas, right? Like, I mean,
one is
a
Walker.
Coach. Is there a Walker?
There is a Walker. Yes,
okay,
there is Herschel Walker. That's one of them. Yep. Obviously, Jimmy Walker, Herschel Walker. By the way, Jimmy Walker has great experience here. Just throwing that out there for you.
Yep. Is there? And again, I'm guessing. Is there a Wallace? Too. Is there a Wallace?
There is not a Wallace.
Okay.
I have zero idea.
Johnson, Jimmy Johnson, right?
Jimmy Johnson, also Keyshawn Johnson, Brad Johnson, Tank Johnson.
Okay.
There you go.
That's a good one. I'm just scrolling through here. Is there a Clark? Isn't there a Clark on the Cowboys now?
No.
Okay. I'm not an expert here.
Hardy
by any means.
Is Greg Hardy? Who's he?
Wait, is there a Hardy in this field? Yeah, Greg Hardy used to play for the Cowboys.
There's a Nick Hardy.
Oh, Nick Hardy's playing in this field. He would be the alternate that you can throw in, but I think there's 6 guys I'd
All right,
probably
give us the 6.
How about Jones? Is there a Jones?
And Greg Hardy has some. There is a Jones, yes. Adam
Yeah.
Pac-Man Jones is one of them, and
Right.
Too Tall Jones for those of you that are older than Greg and Rick. Okay, so you got 3 of them, by the way, and we're gonna leave Greg Hardy out. He has some
Oh,
negative news.
he's the baddie. I forgot. That's my fault.
Yeah. So all right, so we mentioned Jimmy Walker, Herschel Walker. We've got Matt Jones, Adam Pac-Man Jones, Ed Too Tall Jones, and then of course you mentioned Johnson for Zach Johnson, Keyshawn, Brad, Tank Johnson. Okay, so here are the other 3: Taylor Moore, Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore was the backup QB for one of the backup QBs for Tony Romo. He's now the offensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys. All right, we've got Danny Lee, a guy I just mentioned in the 6K range. Sean Lee, 10-year linebacker for the Cowboys. Who
middle
retired
linebacker,
2 years
right?
ago. Yeah, middle linebacker for the Dallas Cowboys. And finally, what team? You can't have a team without a coach, right? Yeah, we kind of mentioned Jimmy Johnson, but I'm going to go bigger. Andrew Landry, Tom Landry. Tom Landry coached the Cowboys for almost 30 years, in the Hall of Fame, 2 Super Bowls. So we have Andrew Landry, Jimmy Walker, Matt Jones, Danny Lee, Zach Johnson, Taylor Moore, and if you want to, you can throw in Nick Hardy. Your
Wow.
Cowboys team.
I'm impressed.
I'm thinking you're going to go with guys over 6'3" or
that's a good one.
Guys who went to Oklahoma State. Thinking of a Peter Uline. I'm not sure there's 6 of them there, but I know Ricky Fowler's in the field too. You got to. So I was thinking something more along those lines, but
like
the Cowboy connection. I mean, that is deep.
Baracho Burrow says this segment is starting to be a reach. Yeah, that's kind of the point. Welcome to the joke. Welcome to
the bit.
Yeah,
you
welcome.
Probably shouldn't play that lineup, but believe it or not, some of them cash. If you're putting more than $1 or $3 on a lineup like that, then you are probably wasting some money.
Do you follow, just real quick on that? Do you follow Club Pro Guy? I assume that.
Yes.
So every once in a while, somebody on Twitter will start coming after him based on his posts. They get upset or offended. And if you read the comments on it, there's always this line that says, you must be new here. That you must be new here if you don't know this is a reach. It's a reach.
This is the whole point. Sia, are you going to bless us with any first round leaders?
I am. I've got 5 for you, but you got to keep in mind because tee times aren't out yet, and there's potential wind issues, obviously, at the Valero year to year. So keep that in mind. I don't have tee times, but here are 5 guys I'll list for you real quick. We're going for 3 in a row on this show, so that would be kind of cool.
Oh, that's right.
Adam had
first round leaders last week because it was match play. Okay.
Yeah, I put some out on Twitter just for the sake of full disclosure. They did not. I had a few that were actually really close, but they didn't hit. But as far as this show is concerned, 3 in a row. Let's start with Adam Hadwin at 50-1, Patton Kizzire at 55-1, Mito Pereira at 60-1, Matthew Naismith at 100-1, and Doc Redman 130-1. Those are the 5.
Okay, I'm writing them down. Hadwin 50, Kiz, that's Kizzire 55, Mito 60, Naismith 100, Redman 110,
130.
Oh, geez, 130.
No respect for this guy.
No respect for Doc. He's turning it around. Let's go.
I love that, Sia. I love those plays.
Feels good.
Especially the first 3.
Yeah, I'll be playing. Listen, I'll be playing all 3. Those 3 in particular, actually, all of them. Doc, I'll probably won't have too much, but Hadwin, Kizzire, Mito, and Naismith, I think are going to make it on a lot of my teams.
Oh, yeah.
All right, gentlemen, any final thoughts before we get out of here on the DFS preview for this week's, I keep wanting to call it Valspar, Valero. Anything else?
Those 2 can be confusing, but this is a cool tournament to watch, and always have the Masters in the back of your mind. But this is a cool one in general, so I'm really looking forward to it. And I think this field is, I looked through it without the DraftKings pricing yesterday. I think it's actually better than I'm more optimistic about it today. So I think we're set for a great week.
Might get somebody to punch a late ticket to the Masters as well,
right? Which is always fun. Maybe a Richard Bland. Not sure if there's a cowboy named Bland, but
real quick, just between us guys and Jacob, Jim Herman's probably going to be my one and done. So just throwing that out there. Don't tell anybody.
See, Nejad giving up on his one and done selections for the season. If you want to make sure that you get your fan vote in, the one and done form is in this description. You have until Tuesday morning when we go live for the mega preview pod. Obviously, it is going to be locked up by then. So make sure to get your vote in right now, and we will announce that on Tuesday morning. But we're going to stop. Producer Jacob does all the hard work behind the scenes. Thank you very much. Sia Nejad, available on Twitter at Sia Nejad. And that's Greg DuCharme, who you can find at The Real GFD. You can find me at RickRunGood. This has been The First Cut, and we'll catch you next time.